Social inequality was one of the most striking topics on the turn from the 19th to the 20th century. It found its expressions in pauperization, expropriation and exploitation on the one side, and the accumulation of wealth on the other side. In the 20th century, it seemed that social policies managed to control extreme social inequalities. Nevertheless, in the 21st century, social inequalities have a surprising revival. Worldwide, we experience today a unique situation of unequal distribution of wealth. The 1% of the richest have more wealth than the remaining 99% of the inhabitants of our planet. This is revealed in a growing gap between the global north and the global south. Similarly, there are significant social disparities and segregations at various spatial scales, from the nation-state to the city. On the other hand, the debate on social inequalities, here explicitly in the plural, has diversified and fanned out into different dimensions of inequality. These include gender, race and ethnicity, but also age, provenience, or other characteristics. How can we understand the dynamics of these diverse forms of social inequalities in contemporary capitalist societies? Lead the rising social inequalities to a process of refeudalization, as German sociologist Sigue proposes? Do we have to focus more on the intersections of different forms of inequality and discrimination, as Colombian social anthropologist Mara Rivera points out? The floor for debate is open.
An intersectional approach to discrimination recognizes that every person, whether male or female, exists within a framework of multiple identities, which are determinants of experiences of racism, racial discrimination, xenophobia, and related intolerance. An intersectional approach highlights how there is a simultaneous interaction of discrimination as a result of these multiple identities.
Bell Hooks draws a clear distinction between marginality imposed by oppressive structures and marginality chosen as a place of resistance, as a space for radical openness and possibility. This space for resistance is a critical response to domination and a space forged through struggle.
By generalizing refeudalization for the sociological investigation of modern capitalism on the whole, I try to describe a paradoxical mode of social change that leads to pre-modern societal patterns as a result of modernization. We can thus gain a better understanding, I think, of both the current pauperization of work and the return of extreme forms of exploitation, as well as the emergence of new oligarchies and the growth of dynastic power, if we analyze these extreme forms of social change in terms of a theory of refeudalization.
So if our analysis of the social question has to transcend the notion of a single telos modeled after the example of the West that is supposed to be achieved everywhere, or if you go beyond the conception that the non-realization of this telos represents somehow a lack in the society's concern, to understanding the specific examples coevally. So this is of course the famous insight of Johannes Fabian, that most societies are denied this coevalness.
Pandemic has an unprecedented negative socioeconomic effects on the lives of millions of people across the world. Poor people and women are more likely to live cramped conditions with harsh options for regular hand washing and purchase of masks, etc. They are also more likely to live in multi-generational households, increasing the transmission risks to vulnerable elderly who cannot be isolated from interactions with others in their homes. Compared to white-collar jobs, the poor have no possibility for home office. It's also an important factor. They also have less access to treatment or vaccination, and to pay the costs for consultation or the expense of treatment.
In winter 2020, we could experience a second wave of protests in Poland. Despite the tense corona situation, thousands of women protested against the national conservative tightening of abortion law. Although the rejection of a national conservative bill on tightening abortion law in Slovakia just a few weeks earlier point to the politicization of abortion law and thus to the relevance of family and family planning for societies as a whole. The European understanding of family has changed to the nuclear family of 1 to 2 kids. And this is a normative form of life.
I think this is a way to share with you a sort of research on inequality, which is combined with discussions on living together, social cohesion, and so on. And our attempt is actually to address both, to understand inequality as a way of living together and living together as a way of sharing inequalities.